Okay, we're returning back to the topic of the gun threats from behind. We're using the outside rotation. So we looked at the different ways to pivot, and I want to show you specifically where one is going to be more advantageous than the other. Let's say he puts the barrel in the small of my back, somewhere near between my shoulder blades. Now the problem with this is look how far my arm has to travel before it makes contact with his arm, or with the hand, okay, because I'm using a toe-out rotation. Now if I combine this with getting the target area first, you know, that can work fairly well. But I want to be aware that, again, which joint of mine is closest to his weapon hand? Which joint? Yeah, the elbow. So if I bend my elbow, I can make contact with his hand sooner. And look at the pivot I've used. I use a toe-out pivot, toe-up. Instead of rotating this way, I'm going to shift my weight the other way. So the gun is in the small of my back, and I'm going to move this way. Okay, now at this point the rotation becomes the same. I try to get behind him, but it allows me to move back into him a little bit easier. So I go this way. And it doesn't have to, again, people are, oh, you know, we're not trying to take the gun out of his hand. I mean, it's nice that happened, but it's because he has a light grip, he's relaxed. So again, these aren't power strokes. All I'm trying to do is move it out of the way. The more subtle I am, the better. Okay? And then as I complete my rotation, I want to get a hold of that, try to get behind him or as deep as I can. Okay? So that's one way that's really important, is often overlooked. Most instructors don't realize that you can use this pivot in that way. Now at this point, the gun is starting to slide up my arm, but look what my second hand should be. So what's it going to do? It's going to run into this hand. Okay? So that's why you need to engage both hands in these situations. Again, that's a little lower, so I can probably move my hip, but if it's higher in the, you know, my shoulder doesn't quite, I can't hit it with my shoulder, so I'm going to have to use my elbow, and the second hand is there to help. Okay? Again, that's closer to my shoulder. So again, you need to spend the hours and have the guy put this anywhere on my back and feel it. What is that closest to? What movable part? In this case, it's closest to my elbow, so I should try to move the elbow. Now in that case, I use a heel out because I moved at the same time. Boom. Okay? It's somewhere else. You know, now it's low, so I want to make that motion. And I exaggerate the hip motion so it clears it. Instead of just rotating like this, I want to try to actually pop against that gun if I can. Okay, and then we end up either here, 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 here. I'm trying to get as far behind him as possible. So there's some important corollaries for you. First of all, we want to move the target area first. Then we want to make sure we're engaging with the second hand because it speeds up our rotation. And also we want to make sure that we are pivoting specifically. Okay? Now, another idea here that we talked about briefly, and I want to combine this with my pivot, is making sure that my head is rocking, whether the head is the target or not. It helps a lot because the head is heavy. It's going to pull my body in the direction that I want to go. So if it's up a little higher near my shoulders again, and I'm going to do the outside rotation, and I'm going to have a heel out pivot, watch what I do with my head is I pull my head like I'm trying to get behind him. This now has sped up my rotation, and I'm already a lot closer behind him than if I just rotate here. Okay? Now, if I really pull my head hard, I'm going to have to step with my right leg and point my toes because my head is pulling me off balance and my feet want to catch up. That's how you're going to end up behind the guy. Okay? Okay, so you want to remember, it's not a power thing. Your best chance, and we're going to step there in a second real quick. Your best chance of getting behind him is when he's pushing on you hard in a straight line. Okay? He's giving you forward momentum. But as you rotate, push fairly hard, he's going to keep moving forward. And this foot is turned. I'm going to try to catch and go all the way behind. If he's got a collar on, this is perfect. I can start choking, keep that weapon down. Okay? So that's ideal, if I can turn all the way behind the guy. Okay, so I'm gonna, boom, engage my second hand. That's another reason why the second hand is so important, because when the weapon's on me, I already want to be reaching around him if I can. If he's got no collar, I'm going to have to go to his chin. Okay? Again, put it anywhere from high to low. Okay, now the head again, when I make my rotation, I'm already out of the way. Now let's say we don't get all the way behind him. We're going to end up pretty deep, but not as deep as we'd like. Let's begin with that scenario. And again, the gun can be to the head. So remember, I'm going to begin my rotation at the head. I'm going to drop my head and rotate deeply. Boom! It goes off. Hopefully this hand is near my ear. I catch here, and I don't reach here because I haven't got as far. All right. What I have here then, my hand will be somewhere here instead of here, is we try to wrench the arm this way. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing my chest into his arm like this. I'm pulling with my hand like this, and we're trying to give his arm a wrench here. Bang! Now he may or may not let go. Depends how hard his grip is, but hopefully I'm getting a half-assed wrench here. And at the very least, hopefully I've unbalanced him here. Again, if he's got a jacket on, I can start choking, and then I can probably kick his leg out. Now again, be careful, this thing's going off. You don't want to be in the field of fire, but I can come up here and take it away that way. So best case scenario, we go all the way behind him and end up behind him. Next best is I end up fairly deep here, and I end up close enough to him where my chest is behind his elbow. That's basically my point of reference. Essentially, you're ending up here in an outside Russian, which we talked about again and again in our self-defense courses. And, you know, if I end up deep enough, my chest is on this side of his elbow. This allows me to wrench on him. Okay? So you can see that that puts pressure on his elbow. Generally, in this kind of situation, it won't be enough to break it because he's always free to walk around, not controlling where his hips go. Okay? But when I keep his head back like this, bang, now his hips can't come forward, and I have a much better chance of actually injuring this elbow here. Hopefully enough to cause a pain reflex here where his hand opens up. Boom, and he drops the weapon. Okay. Now from here you got a tactical decision. Do I kick that weapon away? Do I put him on the ground and finish him off? You know, do I jump for him? These are tactical decisions we'll look at later on. But right now we're looking at the variations of this outside rotation. So I'm here, guy comes, and is this my buddy joking around? Holy cow! Now at this point I've already rotated. Look, and he hasn't realigned the weapon. Is he going to do that? I don't know. But should I turn all the way back again through practice? Hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of these situations. Okay. So again, if it's here in my head, I want to get my head out of the way as I begin my rotation. I'm still pushing his arm on my shoulder, and I'm making the sweeping motion. I'm reaching with this one here. Bang. Okay, now try to kick that leg out. And keep your base. Okay. So that is next best case scenario. We end up in a good arm wrenching, controlling position. We're not going to take the guy down, injure his arm, and get a good strike in there on the head. Next scenarios is we end up here. I don't get as deep, and my body is on this side of his elbow, so I don't have a lot of elbow wrenching options. From here, it's very likely he's going to try and bend his arm. So you may be able to do this kind of stuff as taught in combat sample, for example, but you better hope that the gun hasn't been dysfunctioned for some reason. So when I end up here, I don't control this elbow because I'm on the wrong side of it. I didn't get as deep a rotation as I would have liked, so it's going to be a lot easier for him to pull his arm in. So this is when you can fire or take control of it, all right? Pretty basic idea here. Boom, boom. And again, don't even think about trying to use it in close quarters as a gun if you're not extremely familiar with the firearm. And even then, it's probably better to hit the guy, then use it as a gun. Okay? So we're looking at this progressively. How deep can I make my rotation? If I get all the way behind him, perfect. That can be difficult if he's not moving. If he's shoving me hard and stepping forward, the chances of me getting behind him are a lot better. Okay, so that's why, although this one isn't taught as a standard technique in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academies I've been in, I think it's a lot better because it's better Jiu-Jitsu in the sense that you're going with his force. So optimal position, I get behind him, okay? The next best, and you can tell this because your head is behind him means you're behind him. So if you end up this far and you realize you're closer, you can keep trying to get there. Next best is my head is definitely in front of him, but my chest is against his elbow. So from here, we have these options. I can still get an arm lock here. I can crank his head away this way and get a pretty decent arm lock. Not as a restraint, I don't want to stay here, but as a try to actually dysfunction his arm. Boom, like that. Hope that wasn't if he screams and drops the gun, you know it worked. Okay, next layer of depth is I end up this far, I'm away from his elbow, so the chance of locking it is nil, and I've got nothing controlling this joint, so you know it's going to be fairly easy for him. So then I need to start controlling that weapon again. Be careful. Get it pointed at him so that it's much less likely there's going to be a discharge because my face is pretty close to that field of fire here. All right, so there's the different tweaks. These are often taught as separate techniques at different schools, like they're the only option, when really it's just a variation of early, on time, and late. It's how deep I'm able to get around behind the guy because I have more time and maybe he's slow to react, okay? Now, as that gap widens so that the gun isn't in contact with me, the chances of me getting deep behind him become less and less and less. It's going to be difficult enough just to get my hands on that weapon. So from here, that's when your second hand becomes really important. I need to make, basically I'm making a crosada, if you remember our knife defense, so that if he tries to move the gun up, you know, I'm going to be able to trap it in here. So now, our most shallow rotation is about here. We end up in these wrist lock positions again, which is very similar, but you can see the distance between us. So now I'm back in the same boat, and I better be proficient with this or pull him off balance, okay? Same idea. So what am I doing here is this arm is acting the same, it's knocking it away, and before that comes online, this one better get a hold of it. And again, I can do here, wrist lock, or try to work against the thumb, which is probably the safest and simplest, provided you've got that long slide again, which is not a guarantee, but it's good. So I'm here, I'm farther away. Okay, again, there's a lot of space between us, a lot of things can go wrong, but we've covered some of those eventualities. So I'm here, I go here, I go here, he grabs the gun too, and we're back in the same scenarios. Oh man. So I can try to go over, under, or under, over, and try to make sure I weave his arms. Is a good place to start when you're dealing with those situations. Okay? So there is a whole system you can use to analyze and to tweak your outside rotation defense, which really is probably the best approach. Again, this can be done against knives as well as firearms. The only addition, of course, is that extra danger and how loud noises can disembobulate you, and the field of fire can burn your back, if not blow out your eardrums, depending on the weapon.